can probably go ahead and get started.
All right, awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and just dive right in. I'm going to really briefly introduce myself, and then I'm just going to quickly go over as much of GreyNoise and Polarity's functionality as I possibly can in as short amount of a time as humanly possible. So folks, my name's Andrew Morris. I am the founder and CEO over at GreyNoise Intelligence. And so GreyNoise is a service that makes security people as efficient as possible, SOC teams as efficient as possible, and provides unique insights on internet-wide scan and attack traffic. We have several key use cases that I'll go over really quickly, and I'm going to show you guys all the cool free stuff that you can use, both with GreyNoise atomically and with GreyNoise and Polarity Community Edition together. So I'm super excited about this. If you guys have any questions whatsoever about GreyNoise or about myself or anything like that, more than happy to answer any questions. Just pop them in the chat. And I will, I'll do my best to answer as many of them as I possibly can. And so with that, so I am going to pop over here really quickly and really briefly go over a few quick use cases on what is GreyNoise, what do we do, how do we do it? So GreyNoise, we operate a gigantic network of passive collector sensors at GreyNoise. They're kind of like honeypots, and they're running in hundreds of data centers all around the internet. These passive collector sensors serve no business value whatsoever. They just emulate devices and they collect unsolicited scan and attack traffic that comes to us. You can think of it kind of like a really big network of honeypots. In addition to that, we also preemptively enumerate the locations of known benign services on the internet that your network is talking to that you don't have to worry about. So we believe that every security company out there is telling their customers what to worry about, and we want to tell our customers what not to worry about, or give them more information about the things that other security products are telling them about, so that we can kind of provide more context to try to get to know faster, or to at least get to an answer more quickly on threats that are attacking or scanning and crawling people on the internet, et cetera. So GreyNoise has three primary use cases, and I'm going to briefly go over those real quickly. The first is to make your security team as efficient as possible by giving you context on the scanning and attacking that's hitting your network that is hitting everybody else as well, hitting the entire internet. So whenever you have a security alert that comes up in your organization, one of the things that is pretty common for a security practitioner to ask is this thing hitting everybody on the entire internet, or is it just hitting me specifically? Is this a targeted attack, or is this just hitting everybody? So using GreyNoise, you can figure out if something's hitting everybody on the internet or if it's just hitting you specifically. If GreyNoise doesn't know anything about it, that means that it's probably just hitting you specifically. The second is, as a byproduct of all this data that we collect, we know where a ton of compromised devices are all around the internet, right? So devices that have been infected with opportunistic worms, credential stuffing worms, SSH brute forcers, telnet brute forcers, et cetera. You think of it, we know where a bunch of compromised devices are. Every day, GreyNoise collects about 1 to 200,000 compromised devices located all around the internet. I'll show that to you guys in our web interface. And the third thing is, because we have all these points of presence or collector nodes or sensors or honeypots or whatever word you want to use, all around the internet, and we can program them to look like whatever we want them to, we can actually identify who is scanning for what vulnerabilities on the internet, and who is opportunistically exploiting what vulnerabilities on the internet. And so our research team is always writing analytics and signatures so that we can figure out who's exploiting what on the internet to answer that for our customers. So we have a lot of free products that we give away to the security community, and I'm going to briefly talk about those. The first and foremost is the GreyNoise web interface, or the GreyNoise visualizer. So I have this pulled up right here. You can pull this up on your side just at viz.greynoise.io. And you're just going to see this big empty black screen with a text box that you can type queries into. So I'm going to ask GreyNoise, hey, tell me everybody that's scanning and crawling the internet right now. Every single IP address that's scanning and crawling the internet right now. And I can do that by just typing last seen 1D, or 1 day. Let me see every IP address that's been seen scanning and crawling the internet in the last day. So over the last day, we've seen 328,000 devices that are IP addresses that are scanning and crawling the internet, probably including your networks on here. So of those, we can see that 207,000 we know that they're scanning and crawling the internet, but they're not doing anything. We don't know if they're good or bad. We don't know if they're benign or malicious, right? 115,000 are confirmed malicious, and 5,000 are confirmed benign. Now, a malicious IP address that's scanning, crawling, attacking the internet, that's going to be like a Mirai infection, or an Eternal Blue infection, a credential stuffer, a SSH brute forcer, et cetera. A benign IP address that's scanning and crawling the internet, that's going to be somebody like a search engine, right? Or Shodan, a security company, right? Or Census or Binary Edge or Security Trails or any of these security companies that are scanning and crawling the internet, but they're not necessarily bad guys. They're following all the rules of the internet. They're not doing anything malicious. They're probably doing it for security research, right? So then further, we've got a bunch of aggregates and rollups over here on the left side. And then you can drill into any of these different IP addresses to see more information about it. For example, this IP address seems to be scanning on these ports. GreyNoise has said that it's malicious and it's an open proxy scanner. That means that it's scanning the internet for open proxies, right? And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to briefly show what it looks like to use GreyNoise with Polarity. So we have this web interface here. This is free. Anybody can use this web interface. After some period of time, it's going to prompt you to create an account, but it's free. You don't have to give us any money to use this thing. So I'm going to say, hey, let me see everybody that's scanning the internet in the last day. Now I'm going to say, let me see everybody who's scanning and crawling the internet that GreyNoise knows about that's malicious. Now, maybe I want to say, let me see everybody who is probing for a known CVE. So everyone who's testing for a CVE and or attempting to exploit a CVE. And I'm just going to filter out Eternal Blue because that one is like pretty noisy. Cool, so I found an IP address here. Let's see what happens when I want to use it with Polarity. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this all to my clipboard, and I'm going to go over here and just dump it right into the Polarity on demand. And you can see that it automatically, so the green is GreyNoise. Usually our logo might be gray, but I wanted to do green, so it kind of popped out a little bit more. So we can see here that Polarity immediately picked out this IP address that GreyNoise knows is malicious and all this different metadata about it, as well as the tags that it's seen. In addition to this, Polarity actually also extracted the CVE that GreyNoise has associated with this IP address because this IP address is attempting to exploit this CVE at scale. It's attempting to exploit this vulnerability at scale. So we can see that this first thing here is this tells us, hey, this is information that GreyNoise knows. And you can see that there's parity. It matches up on the right side with what we're seeing on the left side in the web interface. It's all the same data that's coming from the same places. So we can see that. I can drill into this and see even more information about it. When we saw this IP address start scanning and crawling the internet, when we saw it most recently, any CVEs that it's attempting to exploit, et cetera. And so then from here, actually, I can go through and using Polarity's exploit finder, I can actually click on this and it'll show me exploit code for these different CVEs. So I can find the POC code really, really quickly. Cool. So this is really useful for writing detections, writing signatures, et cetera. So now I'm going to show using GreyNoise with Polarity without actually using the GreyNoise web interface. So in order to do this, I'm actually going to hop over here to this SSH auth log. This is just a SSH Linux authentication log. And so you can see in here, it's kind of hard to read, but it doesn't really matter. This is an authentication attempt log of servers that are trying to brute force credentials on a website. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab a blob of these. And honestly, the blob that I grab, it doesn't matter. I haven't actually went through, and this isn't staged data. This is actually just an authentication log from a live server on the internet. I'm going to grab a bunch of this chunk of this here, and I'm going to go over here to Polarity, and I'm just going to pump this in right here. Let's see what Polarity says about this. So Polarity's reporting on it's automatically extracted a bunch of these IP addresses. You can see that GreyNoise is actually correctly associating all these as being malicious and SSH brute forcers, which makes perfect sense. So you can see in here that we actually went ahead and we yoinked out a good number of IP addresses from this view. And you can see here that I've also enabled VirusTotal, Alien Vault OTX, and Shodan. So these things are also I enabled on my side. So I can also see, hey, SSH knows that GreyNoise knows that this IP address is attempting to brute force one of our servers, and VirusTotal calls this IP address malicious. And let's see, OTX says we've seen this in honeypot detectors around the world. And Shodan knows that ports 80 and 3389 are listening on the host, which means it's probably compromised, right? This is probably a compromised device that is attempting to exploit other hosts on the internet and spread its worm. We were able to figure that out super fast using nothing but GreyNoise inside Polarity, as well as some of the other integrations that I've gone ahead and enabled. So with that, I'm just going to show you guys a few other examples of what you can use GreyNoise to do. So like I mentioned, in addition to looking at known bad that's hitting everybody on the internet, we can also see a bunch of known benign things that are hitting everybody on the internet, right? So I can see in here, if I look at everyone who's scanning and crawling the internet, that is a known good guy, we can see, cool, I can see all these IP addresses such as AlphaStrike Labs, that belongs to a security company, Googlebot, et cetera. I can grab all this information. I can on demand look this stuff up right here in Polarity, and it's going to tell me, hey, this is an IP address that's definitely benign. don't worry about this. So if you're a security practitioner and you're in the middle of an investigation or you're in the middle of analyzing some traffic, we'll really quickly tell you, like, yes, you saw this IP address communicating with one of your servers, but it's not bad. It's actually just Google, and they're doing what Google does, which is scan and crawl the internet. And all of this data is available, or at least a subset of this data is available in a free API that anybody can use that's completely unauthenticated. It's the GreyNoise community API. So I'm just going to really quickly show you guys what it would look like to query the GreyNoise community API by typing this URL in from memory. And fortunately, I remembered it on my first try. So this is GreyNoise saying, hey, this IP address is noise, but it's Riot. You can rule it out. It's benign. It belongs to Google. And to see more information, just click on this link right here, and it'll take you right over here so you can see all the exact same information in the GreyNoise web interface. Likewise, as I mentioned before, we provide this for known benign IP addresses that are not necessarily scanning and crawling the internet, just known safe IP addresses that belong to public DNS servers, to Office 365, to different cloud, different CDNs, et cetera. So with that, I want to take a break. I've been talking for 12 minutes straight. I want to see if there are any questions so far about what GreyNoise is, how to use it with Polarity. Let's see. I can check over in the chat. Want to make sure that let's see, Q&A, awesome. So got a question, what is the difference between GreyNoise and Shodan or Census? That's a great question. So the difference between GreyNoise and a Shodan or a Census is that we actually don't scan the internet at all. GreyNoise doesn't scan the internet. So I can't tell you what ports are open on a device. I can't tell you what that device is vulnerable to. You can't use GreyNoise for that at all. GreyNoise listens to the internet. So GreyNoise actually tells you who is scanning and crawling the internet, and you can use that information to differentiate or deprioritize alerts as you're investigating them to make sure that you're starting with the most important ones. You want to make sure to spend as much of your time as possible on the alerts that matter to your organization and as little as time as humanly possible looking at alerts that are generated by people that are opportunistically scanning the internet or devices that are known to be benign, that just don't matter to you. The other question is, what are some of the key capabilities that come with the licensed version of GreyNoise versus the free version of GreyNoise? So the free version of GreyNoise, if I go over here, I can use this web interface, but I can't extract any data out. I can't export data unless I'm a GreyNoise enterprise customer. I can use this for free. I can also use GreyNoise to create alerts. I can use this for free as well, but I can't make the alerts. I can't create more than a certain number of alerts, and I can't make the alerts any faster than coming every day. The community API is, you can see the layout of the community API right here. This provides very few data fields. It only says what GreyNoise knows about it, if it's noise or not, and if you can rule it out or not, if it's benign, the name of the actor, and that's it. When we saw it last, that's it. Whereas the GreyNoise community, where the GreyNoise enterprise provides a whole lot more information that you can use in your security products to be able to figure out, you know, a bunch of additional information about GreyNoise, et cetera. The community API is rate limited, but it's got a pretty high rate limit on it. So that's another key kind of differentiator in here. Let's see. Let's see. I am going to take a second. Does anybody have any other questions? So just so you guys know, I am actually using the free version of Polarity right now. So that means that I am able to use Polarity to quickly enrich IP data about IP addresses using the community integrations that are set up here. I can grab just like a big list of IP addresses, and I could use the shortcut to really quickly enrich the different IP addresses in here. The first thing that I did right here, I just grabbed a bunch of IP addresses off of Abuse IPDB, pasted them straight into here, and you can see all the different insights that Polarity has used against all these different data services to provide some valuable insights back over to us. Any other questions from anybody else in here? All right, awesome. Let's see. And I'm going to keep on going. So the other ways that you can use GreyNoise really quickly and easily is one thing that I can do is I could use the analysis page. So that means I could go to, like, for example, oh, we did get a question. I'll come right back to your question. For example, I can say, let me find a list of compromised IP addresses right over here. And this is just emerging threats as compromised IPs. I can grab a list of these IP addresses, or I can grab these to my clipboard, and I can actually use the GreyNoise analysis page free. I can just dump data in right here, unstructured data that has a bunch of stuff in here. It doesn't have to be exactly right. It's smart enough to be able to kind of extract IP addresses, not dissimilar to Polarity. And I can use this analysis page to actually really quickly enrich all this data and see the information that GreyNoise knows about. I know GreyNoise, for example, here knew about 82% of these IP addresses, and 17% GreyNoise didn't know anything about. And this is all the information that we know about it. So somebody just asked, does GreyNoise have data on domains? We do not. In the future, one of the things that we're trying to do is we're trying to provide any information that's going to allow our users and customers to get to know faster, which means instead of us trying to find where all of the bad stuff is, we're actually focused on trying to find where the benign stuff is as much as humanly possible. So on our roadmap, we do have a feature for contextualizing and enabling the deprioritization of known benign domains, google.com, things like that, right? We want to try to provide the exact opposite of a threat intelligence service. We want to say, we're actually going to tell you all the things not to worry about, as opposed to all the things that we believe are bad, right? Hopefully that makes sense. This is a great question, though. We have another minute and a half. The only other things that I could think of that might be relevant to folks in here is if you're interested in the kinds of data that GreyNoise provides, you can actually go over here to the GreyNoise tags page, and you can see all the tags that we apply to our data. We have hundreds of them, and our research team is always writing more and more of these. And these are all facetable. So you can click on these and it'll query these so that you can actually learn more about it. Something that I really enjoy that I can do with Polarity and with GreyNoise is that I can actually look up CVEs in GreyNoise. So I could say, for example, here's a bunch of CVEs that this IP address is attempting to exploit. So I can grab this again, punch it straight into Polarity, and it's going to enrich this against, let's see, it's enriching a bunch of different stuff. So here we go. Cool. So you can see that it enriched all these different CVEs, which is really interesting. And I can actually pivot into this, and you can see for this particular CVE, you can see in GreyNoise, these are where we're seeing that the countries that we're seeing the devices located in that are attempting to exploit these CVEs, the classifications of them, the different other tags that they're going to have, as well as some other information right in here. So I can actually pivot from this straight into the GreyNoise web interface, say, hey, show me all the IP addresses that are attempting to exploit this vulnerability. Boom, it shows me all of them right here, right in the web interface. I can actually grab all these IP addresses that Polarity just told me are also exploiting this vulnerability. And I can grab these, and again, I can shove this right back in and say, what's all the stuff that I know about all these IP addresses? We can see that most of them are malicious, and some of them are located in, this one's located in a Microsoft network, which is really interesting. This one is located in Germany, in a hosting provider in Germany. This one's located in China, et cetera. So I can see a bunch of really interesting information super, super fast without having to do much work at all or muck around with APIs or anything like that. It's all kind of just happening under the hood, which is really fantastic. Any other questions? Awesome. So all this functionality is available right now. You can create a free account with GreyNoise. Just go to viz.greynoise.io, and there's a sign up page that you can use to really easily create an account. And from there, you'll be able to you can use the community API without having to create an account, but you will want to create an account if you want to use the visualizer any more than just a handful of times. Let's see. With that, I am at time. If anybody has any other questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. But otherwise, then I've really enjoyed doing this, and I hope that you guys